Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader. I appreciate all of you hanging out with me. It has been a long week. I flew back late last night from LA to get back to Nashville in time for Christmas. I hope all of you are having a good Friday before you roll into what hopefully will be a fun Christmas week. While everybody else is out there taking off a lot of days, I'll be back on Monday. And we only get 2 days off for Lock It In. We get off Christmas Day and we get off New Year's for the next 2 weeks. So I'll mostly be doing radio. I'll mostly be working. I'll mostly be knocking everything out. So I appreciate all of you hanging out here with me, as many of you will be taking off all of next week because you're a bunch of slackers. A whole bunch of slackers. But got a lot to get to today because I didn't do shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because I was out in LA and I was too busy. Impeachment analysis, breaking it down. NFL playoff races. What should we be paying attention to this weekend? The Army-Navy circle game hate crime investigation has been completed. I'll tell you what they uncovered. The CBS SEC package has been much discussed this week. I wrote about it in the mailbag. We will discuss that as well. And recruiting class rankings have been rolling throughout. But we begin with impeachment analysis. My entire timeline has been filled with people who want me to talk about impeachment. I haven't had time, but it basically boils down to this. This is a game that everybody wants to treat like it's a big game, except you already know what the final score is going to be. And I tweeted this and I talked about it a couple of months ago. I said the Democratic House of Representatives is going to impeach Donald Trump, and then the Republican Senate is not going to remove him, making this entire exercise a big charade of political machination. It matters not at all. I always say, look to what the stock market is doing. The day after Donald Trump was impeached, the stock market hit an all-time record, meaning that there's no fear whatsoever that anything is actually going to change. Interestingly enough, in the offshore betting markets, for the first time that I can remember in recent history, Donald Trump is now favored. Not the favorite, he is favored to be reelected in 2020. There's a difference between being the favorite, which he should be, because we know that he's going to be the Republican nominee, and being favored to actually be the presidential winner in 2020. Right now, Donald Trump is over 50% in the odds market likely to be reelected in 2020 and be the president. That means he is favored to be the president, not that he is the favorite. Again, that's a distinction. He should be the favorite. He should not necessarily, depending on what you think, be favored to be reelected, but his reelection right now is being favored based on all of the offshore gambling markets as it pertains to 2020. Okay, what is the actual substantive impact of impeachment? One, we have continued to devalue impeachment to the point now where if one party doesn't like the other party, they have decided to impeach the president. And I think we saw an element of this back in the late 90s with Bill Clinton. I was in college then. I was working on Capitol Hill. I went to many of the hearings surrounding impeachment. I feel like a unicorn in some sense because I didn't support impeaching Bill Clinton or removing him from office, and I don't support impeaching or removing Donald Trump for office. There's an election, guys, in a little bit over 11 months, right? A little bit less than 11 months. If people don't like Donald Trump, they have an opportunity to go out across the nation and vote for or against him to remove him from office. I don't believe impeachment should happen absent draconian wrongdoing in our country. And I don't believe what Bill Clinton did approached it, and I don't believe what Donald Trump did. I actually think what Bill Clinton did was worse because it was an actual crime. So far, there's been no actual crime alleged associated with what Donald Trump did. But I am consistent in my analysis. I didn't believe that Bill Clinton should be removed. I don't believe that Donald Trump should be removed. The reason why we have elections is to elect presidents. And absent, again, egregiously wrongdoing, which there has never been in my life by a president, then I don't think we should remove people from office. I think what we have done with this situation is our hyper-intensive polarization has led to a new precedent being set, or one being followed, if you want to argue that 20 years ago set the precedent, where if a president is not popular with the opposing party, they will decide to impeach him. I think we need to give credit to the framers and founders. I know they were white men. I know we can't credit white men with anything good in the modern era. But I think they were incredibly smart to require a 2/3 vote to remove the president from office. Otherwise, we would have had, with both Bill Clinton and with Donald Trump, perpetual uncertainty surrounding our president. As is, there is a 0% chance that Donald Trump is going to be removed from office. This is all sideshow theater, and the analogy that I have made, if you want to think about the way that we analyze what's going on right now, is we have got sideshow theater, and effectively this is like a sporting event that we already know the outcome from, where all these people make a living talking about the game that we already know how it's going to end. You may not like what people do when it comes to analyzing sporting events, but at least by and large, most people on halftime of the Super Bowl don't know at all what's going to happen in the second half. Ask the Atlanta Falcons. Here, we already know exactly what is going to happen. This is not a difficult situation at all. This is pretty straightforward. This is a sham process. We already know the result. The real question is, what's the impact going to be in 2020? And as I've been saying from the get-go, I believe that impeachment strengthens Donald Trump in 2020. I think that it hurts the Democrats. Now, there are some young people out there, and I feel like an old man, like I'm a man, I'm 40, screaming this now, who tweet me and they say, oh, well, Bill Clinton was severely impacted by his impeachment because the Republicans won the election in 2000. And I feel like you young knuckleheads out there who are making this argument don't understand, and this is no great surprise because our country is incredibly historically illiterate by and large. They don't understand that Bill Clinton would have been elected to a third term with massive popularity if he had been able to run again. So this idea that somehow impeaching Bill Clinton hurt the Democrats is ludicrous. George W. Bush may well have not won in 2000 anyway, but he would have gotten crushed by Bill Clinton, who would have won a third term. What we have not seen happen before is a first-term impeachment that is then followed by an election involving the person who has been impeached. All the Democrats have done, in my opinion, is play into Donald Trump's argument that all of the elites are allied against him and that there is a conspiracy. Now, the irony here is, I agree with Hillary Clinton. I think there was a vast right-wing conspiracy that was determined to bring down Bill Clinton. I think there is similarly a vast left-wing conspiracy that is determined to bring down Donald Trump. Both of those things can be true. What I would say in general is the American public gets to decide who the president is, not 100 senators and not 435 representatives. I think it is incredibly arrogant of any political party to decide, especially absent criminal behavior, that they are going to pull anybody out of office, especially in effectively an election year. So I think this is a broken system. I think it's a bad precedent that's been set. I think if Joe Biden wins and the Democrats, for instance, won the House, I think there's a decent chance that Joe Biden gets impeached at some point in time. I don't think it's healthy for our country, regardless of whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. I don't think we should be in the regular habit of impeaching presidents. So I'm going to have to block people. Somebody said the American public didn't really elect him, buddy. Yes, they did, you ignorant fool. The American public elected Donald Trump president of the United States, okay? Whether you agree or disagree with that decision is your choice. But the reality is this impeachment will have no impact in a negative way on Donald Trump's reelection, and I think it will actually increase his chances of being reelected. Somebody stop. All right, I'm going to have to block this dude. I'm going to have to block this guy too. The American public didn't elect Donald Trump. The Electoral College did. The Electoral College did? The Electoral College did? That's how we elect the American president, you imbecile. Everyone gets elected through the Electoral College. That's how we select a president. You ignoramus. That's how it happens. So yes, the American public did elect the president. Some of you are so dumb and you are driven so insane by your disdain for Donald Trump that you are so dumb you aren't even aware of how dumb you are. You have lost your damn mind. We have a constitutional government in place that determines how we elect presidents. Donald Trump was elected by the American public. The fact that Democrats can't accept it is insane. Deal with it. Move on. You got your ass kicked. Stop being sore losers. Try to win in 2020. Stop trying to overturn the election. To me, a big part of impeachment is this. Democrats are terrified that Trump is going to win in 2020. They know that they have put forward a relatively uninspiring list of contenders to beat him in 2020, who probably are not as good of candidates as Hillary Clinton was. And so, as a result, they are trying to not only take him away from being president now, they're trying to do whatever they can to keep him from getting reelected in 2020 because they don't trust the American public to decide. Call me crazy, but I trust the American public to decide because I believe in democracy. All right, NFL playoff races. There are 2 real playoff races remaining in the NFL. Now, some of you out there can say, well, what about if the Colts go 8-8? Or you can say, well, what if the Minnesota Vikings lose out? All right, there are odd and unexpected permutations at stake here. But the truth of the matter is the NFC East likely is the final playoff spot to be decided in the NFC between Dallas and Philadelphia. And in the AFC, we have the Steelers and the Titans having a pillow fight down the stretch to see which team is going to be able to get in as the 6th seed. Those are the real only races. Now, there's uncertainty about what seeds people could get, but the truth of the matter is this. I believe that Dak Prescott, based on talking to a couple of doctors, has significant issues in his shoulder, which is why I'm betting on the Eagles and the under. I think the Eagles will win the NFC East. The AFC is more complicated because there's all these different potential permutations. For instance, if both the Titans and the Steelers win out, and neither one wins the division, so the Titans don't win the division, then the Steelers win the 10-6 tiebreak. But the Titans would win the tiebreak at 9-7, and they would also win the tiebreak at 8-8, presuming that the Colts don't also finish 8-8. So there are a lot of uncertainties here as you roll through the NFL playoff scenarios. I think probably if you're a Titans fan, the best case scenario to make the playoffs is honestly have the Bucs lose to the Texans on Saturday, tomorrow. That would win the Texans the AFC South, and then the Texans are likely to rest all of their starters, which means if the Titans could beat the Texans, regardless of what happens in their game against the Saints this weekend, the Titans would be the representative, presuming that the Steelers lose one of their final 2. And I think the Steelers will lose one of their final 2. Now, if you're a Steelers fan, you could obviously root for your team to beat the Jets and also beat the Ravens, but you should probably be rooting for the Ravens to win big over the Browns so they lock up the number 1 overall seed and presumably might not start their starters in the final week of the season. The challenge there is the Ravens then have multiple weeks off. So they would have this week 17 off, they would have the bye week, and then they would have the divisional game. So it's almost a month before they would play a football game that matters again. Would they seat all of their starters? I don't know. I don't know exactly what happens. So there's still a possibility. Somebody just said if the Titans win out and the Texans lose out, don't the Titans win the South? Yes, the Titans can still win the AFC South if they win out and the Texans lose out. But if you believe that the Titans are going to go on the road and win a big game against the Texans with the AFC South division crown on the line, I've got a bridge I could sell you. I don't feel confident at all in the Titans' ability to win a game that really matters against anybody other than the Chiefs. Okay, that's the NFL playoff race picture. Got to give credit here. Somewhat credit anyway. We talked about this on Monday. Remember this sign? This sign that people are losing their minds over? It's called the circle game. And if you see it and somebody looks at it and they hold it up and you see it, you punch them in their arm. So this happened at the Army-Navy game. A bunch of West Point cadets were doing it during college game day behind Reese Davis. And people lost their minds on social media. A ton of people on social media who should know better and are perpetually aggrieved and are always claiming racism for every single thing that happens, said, oh my God, look, these are white supremacist signs from West Point cadets. On Monday's show, I came on, I told you that was ludicrous. There was no way it was true. Well, the guys at West Point have conducted an investigation, and they have determined, guess what? The kids were playing the circle game. Now, to their credit, they acknowledged that they were playing the circle game, which is not racist and in any way inappropriate. To their discredit, they say they are going to punish the kids for playing the circle game during the game between Army and Navy, and this is ludicrous. These kids should not be punished at all. They should be apologized to. In fact, I would encourage all of you to chase down all of the losers who accuse these kids of being white supremacists and let those people have it until they're actually willing to apologize for fomenting racial division by making up artificial viral elements of racism. We've seen this happen time after time at Mizzou, at Syracuse recently. Michael Bennett, Myles Garrett, LeBron James racist graffiti hoax, Jussie Smollett, you name it, all of these just stack up one after another and prove that there is a greater demand for viral racism than there is actually a real life collection of viral racism incidents. That girl at the grocery store checkout line, all of these things that Twitter loses its mind over, ultimately when they are investigated, the vast majority of the time, they are found out to be not true. Okay? So this is a big deal. You would think that the media and also all these people out here who want to believe the worst would learn their lesson. Covington Catholic is another one. But unfortunately, they do not. Doug Adler is another good one. Unfortunately, they do not. And it happens over and over and over again in the world of sports that viral racist incidents are totally made up and not real life. Yet every single time they're covered as if they are 100% real, okay? It's time for people to be more reasonable here. I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. It certainly does. But it doesn't exist in the way that the media covers it exclusively. The only way the media covers racism is when a black person is a victim and a white person is a perpetrator. Any other incident of racism gets buried. And that is why our national discussion on race in America is fundamentally broken, because it's set back still in the 1950s and the 1960s, where primarily white men are perpetrators and primarily black people are victims. That's all people want to talk about. It's the only stories that go viral. Black supremacists shoot up a Jewish delicatessen, kill people, story disappears. White guy kills somebody in a car in Charlottesville, story exists forever. It's constantly being brought up, constantly being reanalyzed. Every time that a white person is accused of an improper act, it's a story forever. Black person does the same thing, it disappears. Look at Antonio Brown. Got his ridiculous, I'm going to end no white women 2020 or whatever the heck he tweeted. Can you imagine if Christian McCaffrey tweeted no black women 2020? He'd be banned from the NFL. Basically the exact same thing. We're not treating the situations in any way as similar. All right? My straightforward position is we should treat everybody the same. Precedents matter. I'm not saying that everybody has always been treated the same, but you don't solve inequality by behaving in an unequal fashion. The only thing society can do is set in place precedents which do not favor any one person and apply them, or any one group, and apply them evenly across the board. So, Army-Navy, the investigation proved what I told you was going on. It's a freaking circle game and not a sign of white power or white supremacy. And as such, those kids shouldn't be punished at all, but at least there is some reasonable response here by the West Point in their investigation. Let me also say this. As you look at this investigation and as you look forward, the Cubs should be ashamed of themselves. The fact that Theo Epstein was literally shaking over the circle game happening on television, the Cubs had an opportunity to conduct their own investigation and come to the same result, which was this was not some sort of racist white supremacy sign. The Cubs lost their mind over this. At least the Naval Academy and West Point did not lose their minds over this. The CBS SEC package has been much in the news of late. I'm going to write about this in the week coming up, but John Oran at the Sports Business Journal did what I think is an interesting analysis, and he said he thinks ABC, Disney, ESPN will buy away the CBS package for over $300 million a year. I believe Fox, Comcast, NBC, ABC, Disney, ESPN, all one entity, and CBS will all be bidding for this package. Right now it costs $55 million. I think it will go over $300 million. And so the question that'll be out there is twofold. And I wrote about this in the mailbag today, and I'll write about it tomorrow or next week as well. One, does CBS try to come in and bid way more money than anybody else can because they still have 4 years left on their deal? And two, does the SEC want to be entirely under the Disney, ESPN, ABC umbrella, or would they rather have multiple entities carrying their games? The NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, Pac-12, Big 12, SEC. Right now, most sports aren't all in one place. In fact, the only two I can think of right now, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, the NHL national games are all with Comcast, NBC Sports Network. I believe I'm correct in that. And the ACC is all with ESPN/ABC. Otherwise, I don't think there's anybody else out there that has these packages all directly under one partner. By and large, it makes sense to get multiple partners because that allows you to be promoted across a wider variety of the sports spectrum. And so I think it's likely that the SEC is going to be moving off CBS. I think it's likely that Fox and NBC are going to be big bidders here as well. Finally, recruiting class rankings. We had the early signing period this week. I was out in LA, so I didn't get to spend a lot of time talking about this with you guys. But I am not a be obsessed with, one particular recruit guy. Like, I don't even hardly pay attention to individual recruits. I look at larger class rankings because the numbers reflect that if you want to win a national championship, you pretty much have to be in the top 10 in 3 of the 4 years, if not 4 of the 4 years before a national championship is won. So, and I like to use the 24/7 composite rankings instead of using individual ranking classes because they're different and they're not biased, all right? So Tennessee did finish, somebody's excited. Tennessee finished 9th in Rivals. They finished 15th in the composite index because ESPN didn't like Tennessee's recruiting class. So here is the top 10 according to the composite 24/7 index. Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M, Auburn, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma. All right, that's your top 10. wildly for Florida. They are 8th in the nation and 6th in the SEC. Let me repeat that for a minute. The Florida Gators are 8th in the nation and 6th in the SEC, which is a sign of how incredible SEC recruiting is. Let me repeat that again. They are 8th in the nation. They would be number 3 overall in the nation, behind only Ohio State and Clemson. If they were in any other conference in America, they are in the 6th position in the SEC, which is almost downright middle of the road. Tennessee had a really good close. They finished 15th overall in the composite index. That's 7th in the SEC. South Carolina, 16 in the nation, 8th in the SEC. So all of this worth paying attention. 80% of the top recruits signed in the early signing period. So for people out there saying, well, it's not complete yet, you're correct. There's still 20% of the top players outstanding, but it's going to be hard for movement to occur very substantially with 80% of the hay in the barn. All right. Kisses to all of you. Lock it in live at 4:30 Eastern. We will only be off Christmas and New Year's Day. So if a lot of you are out there, with you're out of school or you're out of work and you don't have the same obligations, you should make sure that you check out Lock It In. We'll be hanging out with you. We'll be working every single day while everybody else pretty much is taking time off. Let me finish with this, by the way. USC, woo boy, it can't get much worse for USC than it is right now. They are number 79 on the 247 recruiting index rankings, 12th in the Pac-12. 79 for USC, the worst recruiting class ranking imaginable for the Trojans. My, how the mighty have fallen. Kisses. Love all of you. I will see you. I will see you maybe tomorrow. Enjoy the NFL games. Remember, there's triple header tomorrow. I'll see you on Lock It In at 4:30 Eastern. Kisses. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. See y'all. Love you. Thank you, Facebook.